Press. So I've now pressed record. So all you've missed on the recording is my introductions and none of the content. So I'm not going to repeat any of that for the benefit of the people in the room. You are welcome to add questions if you want to into the chat. I will try to keep an eye on it and see if you are. If you have questions, then you're very welcome, of course, as well to raise your hand to ask them. And what we're going to do, first of all, I think we only have one of the two tickets represented here, as far as I can see, as far as I can tell. So we are going to ask Brian. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself and take a couple of minutes to tell us about yourself, your candidacy, and what you would bring for our members on GPEx?
Right. Well, firstly, I'd like to thank you for arranging hustings that includes GPEx members. It's actually the first hustings I've done, because the focus on leaders in particular has just kind of crowded everything else out. So anyway, I'm standing for the post of elections coordinator on GPEx. I'm seeking re-election, having done the job for the past 3 years. I'd say they've been 3 very successful years, although I'm not going to claim all the credit for that by a long way. I see us very much as a progressive party on a range of social and economic issues, and that definitely includes LGBTIQA plus rights. I'll try and get it right. If I don't get it quite right, I apologize. As a kind of cis straight male, I'm kind of privileged, but hopefully trying to be a good ally. To give a bit of background on the sort of things you'd like to be interested in, I think in some cases come a long way in my lifetime. When I was growing up, it was illegal to be gay, and we've gone through Section 28, and now we've got equal marriage. And things, I think, in some respects, have got a lot better. However, I wouldn't really say that at the moment with regard to trans people, trans and non-binary people. I think it's absolutely appalling how in recent years transphobia has it's not just been a weapon of the far right, but it's become endemic in our society, in our media, in our political and our administrative establishment, even at the hands of supposedly progressive parties like the Labour Party. So I'm very much in support of this party's policy on trans rights. I think it's in line with pretty much every other progressive party across Western Europe and the Western world. And I'm convinced that we're on the right side of history. And from what I've experienced among the people I've worked with in the party, I'm fairly confident that that view is shared by the majority, I'd say the great majority of our active members. Regarding the world of elections, which obviously is very much my area, again, I'd say that our proportion of lesbian, gay and bi candidates at parliamentary level and target candidates at local election level is higher than in the population as a whole. It's one area of diversity that we've actually done well in. But again, we need to do much better on the trans front. And I'll just to, we're kind of not necessarily leading on this. I'll give you a very local example. I live in Manchester, and we do actually have a trans councillor in Manchester, but it's not a Green, it's a Lib Dem. So, I don't really like to see the Lib Dems beating us, if you want to put it that way. And in our early preparations, and one of the things I'm pleased and proud about is that we are actually getting our preparations for the next election, which could be 4 years away, in early. We're really looking at trying to improve the diversity of the candidates in our target seats, we're very mindful that all our existing MPs are white, for instance. So it's something I'm aware of. I know that we need to do better, but I think we're learning, and I think I've got a lot of experience of doing the job for 3 years that could help us get further on in the future. I've not been timing myself, but I think that will do as an introduction.
That's great, Brian. Thanks ever so much. That's really helpful introduction.
Are you muted?
I think I might have been at the beginning. I might have taken a minute to. Can you hear me now, Brian?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. No, I think sometimes when you hit the button, it doesn't actually happen quite immediately. So yeah, thanks for that. That's really helpful. Good to get to know you. Good to say hello and get to know you. So we've got a few questions that have come in the chat already. So I'll just head on with it. And if anybody wants to stick their hand up, then they're very welcome to as well. So I'm going to start with the first question that we had in the chat, which is from Salem Bennett. And the question is, there have been some legal battles related to trans rights that have cost the party a lot of money. Would you do anything to avoid future expensive court cases? And if so, how would you ensure that the party remains bold in promoting party policy?
Right, there have indeed. It's a real headache for us on GPEx, because a lot of people have various ideas of what they think GPEx does. A lot of it is worrying about money and balancing what we want to spend in campaigning and stuff like that with the amount that we can actually get in terms of income. And it really does grieve me to see money going out to lawyers and legal costs and plaintiff costs and so on. It does nobody any good. What I will say is, though, as I say, I'm very much supportive of our policies and our trans inclusion and so on. Not everyone in the party thinks quite the same way. And however much we might disagree or dislike, we are obliged to follow the law. We have to abide by good legal practice and fairness, procedural fairness in any complaints and disciplinary process. That's not always been the case, from what I can gather. And it's something we're trying to improve. We're working with members of GPEx, are working with members of GPRC and disciplinary committee to try and constantly improve the way we run our processes. We do need to spend more on that side of complaints and disciplinary. Again, these things are always competing for money. It's a real headache. I think that the way to really make sure that our policies are clear to the wider public is our leaders need to be stating policy, and we need to be very clear in all our communications in the media what our policy is and where we stand. And the fact that there are some in the party that don't share those, that has to be, as I say, handled with fairness and reason.
Thanks, Brian. Daniel, I'm going to come to you, if that's okay. You'd like to ask your question?
There we go. Hello, Brian. My question is specifically around the diversity of our candidates, specifically LGBTQI plus candidates. What have you done since being elected several years ago to ensure that you're working not only with LGBTQI plus Greens, but also like people of Greens majority, people of colour, to ensure we're having a more diverse range of candidates standing in local, in parliamentary, police and crime commissioner and mayoralty elections? And also a two-part question for this is, what are we doing in terms of the data we have on candidates that do stand to ensure that we're getting more of those diverse candidates standing in all kinds of elections?
Well, we do monitor diversity amongst candidates. It's by the very nature of it, it's self-selecting. Not all candidates will complete questionnaires on that, so it's by very definition not perfect, but it does provide a very useful guide as to how well we're doing or how much better we need to do. That's something the field team, who are the team of staff that I work with, do a fantastic job, really, are included in what is part of their work. I mean, we've got very detailed statistics in as much as people have responded on our last parliamentary candidates, for instance. And we are constantly looking at how we can improve the diversity by outreach, by working with the groups of special interest. I think that's the correct term. We have an E&D coordinator on GPEx. Unfortunately, the role's not been filled for a while now, but that's another part of what GPEx does. I've got my kind of elections role, which I'm kind of covering there a bit, but there's also the wider executive role where we're performing our governance function as a wider party. And we can do better, but we are working on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. And thanks, Daniel, for the question. Another question from the chat, Kate Hatton from Wolverhampton Green Party. Many people have come forwards about how they've been excluded by our election practices. Disabled people told they shouldn't even run to stand for a role by local party officers because they can't campaign the way they should, according to Target to Win. How are you going to fix this? And just as a bit of background, just relevant, obviously there's a quite a significant overlap between LGBTIQA plus people and disabled people. But also, unfortunately, the disability group has not been able to find the capacity to run its own hustings this year. So.
Well, that shouldn't be happening. I mean, people kind of misuse Target to Win. I think it's a set of guidelines, and they can be adapted. They can be flexible to deal with particular situations. We've had in the Northwest, we've had target candidates, disabled target candidates, and we have taken. We've provided financial help to them, which is difficult in a party that's constantly kind of strapped for cash as we are. Unfortunately, they don't get. There used to be a fund for parliamentary candidates with disabilities to enable them to carry out the job properly. And of course, under the many Tory governments we've had, that was done away with. So we have to bear the cost of that. But we do. I can think of 2 or 3 examples just in the Northwest of candidates with disabilities who we've actually promoted as target candidates. So if that is happening, then I would hope that's not coming from the field organizer or anyone like that. That's probably someone in a local party who perhaps doesn't understand what we as a wider party are trying to do.
Thanks, Brian. So maybe that's something to take with you as well in terms of what happens next. Should you continue in the role? Another question then from a member. I'd like to ask the question: do you agree with one of the recommendations in the EHRC to report into anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, that a party's executive should stay out of the party's disciplinary process? And did you have any concerns with the party's executive, GPEx, conducting an investigation into the party's disciplinary process this year?
I don't have any problem with that. I, in fact, along with most GPEx members, voted to do that because, coming back to what I was saying earlier, we are responsible for the party's finances. So if we are incurring legal massive legal fees, then in fact we have a duty as managers of the party's money to try and see how that can be reduced. We don't get involved in individual cases. We certainly shouldn't do. Those primarily lie with the disciplinary committee, but there's a role for regional council as well. But we're increasingly trying to work with those bodies to improve the working, both the mechanical working and the kind of, if you like, I'm trying to think of the right word, the kind of attitude, the kind of just personal governance of that kind of system. Yeah, culture. That's a good word, that Salem. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Brian. We're probably going to stop pretty soon, the next minute or two. Just one thing that occurred to me is that there is, for example, there's a motion, or there was a motion in the agenda, on the agenda site, talking about appointing legal support directly as the party. Do you have a quick fire yes or no for that?
Well, we do hire. We have solicitors that we hire at the moment, a firm of solicitors.
But in terms of on staff,
they're yeah. We hire them on a sort of professional hire basis. They're not members of staff. Whether that's the best method or whether we should have an in-house solicitor, I think that's something that maybe is time to look at that. In an ideal world, we wouldn't be paying any legal fees or legal money to anybody at all. So it's probably, it tends to sit more with the admin and finance subcommittee on GPEx, that side of things, which I sometimes attend, but more as an observer.
Okay,
that's people like
the finance coordinator, currently Julian, and yeah. Okay. Thanks, Brian. We're going to start wrapping up now. So, is there anything you wanted to close with before we go back into the big room?
No, but just actually coming back to my rivals, the other ticket, they have got something on. There's been an interview with Ed Poole, as have I. So we're both on there. So. Yeah. In the spirit of generosity and everything I'm saying, that you can go and look at what they have to say there, as well as what I have to say.
Well, we'll encourage people to have a look at that as well, and that's very good of you, Brian. So thanks very much. Thanks to everybody for joining this part of the session. We're going to close the room now. Everybody's very welcome to stay with us for the next part, which I think is GPEx chair, isn't it? Exciting times in about 10 minutes. So thanks ever so much for your time, and do please.
Thank you, Chris. And to the people who ask questions, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming as well, to Brian, and Chris for chairing. Yeah.